I literally just sat down to vlog, and as I sat down, this pinged off. It's not supposed to do that. I have a feeling I'm not going to be able to fix this. Right now, anyway. And I deliberately chose to wear this because it's green, and I'm talking about Ireland. You know what? I'm just going to have one strap. I'm going to leave it as it is. I won't undo the other one, otherwise I'll look naked. But, oh, whatever. As I said, today I'm going to be talking about my Irish trip and everything I got up to. It wasn't too long ago, but whatever. You'll notice in all the clips I am wearing lots of stuff, and I will talk about how cold it was, and it's because I think I went in May, maybe April, whenever. It was cold. Whereas right now I'm sitting in my wonderful bedroom with all the windows closed, and it was 33.9 degrees in Heathrow today. Hottest day on record since the 70s. I haven't scripted this, but I have some notes, some bullet points, things to remind me. So this will be a very conversational type of vlog with lots of clips. So the reason why I found myself in Ireland was I was invited to the EMEA Conference for Child Safety and Online Safety, which was held in Dublin. It was nothing to do with YouTube. I was asked to talk about my experience with online safety and being who we are whilst protecting ourselves, stuff like that. So that's how I managed to get over to the wonderful land of Dublin, but I was allowed to stay for a couple of days before my flight went home. So I planned to do some stuff on my own. And then out of the blue, my mum decided to come. So my mum and I had nearly 3 days to ourselves in wonderful Dublin town. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go back to the beginning. So when I arrived in Dublin, I had to wait for a bus to take me to the city centre, and it was there I met somebody called Greg, who worked at Google. Insert 25 minutes of conversation on the bus. I spent the afternoon at the conference, and then after the conference, I met up with Greg again. By this point it was evening. He took me to the Crow's Nine vintage store, which is somewhere near Temple Bar. I'd never been to Temple Bar before, I'd only read about it, so I was quite excited just to be in Temple Bar. We listened to a couple of indie bands whilst drinking cider. And then we said goodbye. I went to my hotel, by which point I was shattered and in so much pain, but happy. Really good evening, but the pain is bad, it's bad. Right. The second day of the conference was held at Facebook, and I was there for the majority of the day. When that finished, I then met up with my mum, who had just flown over. I had about an hour to myself before my mum turned up, so I went exploring, and I found myself outside this church. The bells would not stop ringing. For the next few nights, my mum and I stayed in an Airbnb. I'm going to insert a clip of me showing you around the Airbnb. So this is our Airbnb. That's the kitchen, and yes, the dishwasher is running. There's the bathroom, and then through here, this is the main bedroom. This is where I slept. I slept there, and then here is the lounge. She's hiding there. That night, my mum and I did Deliveroo for the first time. Most of you have probably used food delivery apps before, but where I live, nothing like that exists. So it was quite exciting for us to do that. So that night, we slept in. We slept in till 12. I was so happy to sleep in and to rest my knee. We then did one of those hop-on, hop-off tour buses all around Dublin. I'm filming. It actually started raining whilst we were on the bus and there were no more seats, so I had to get out the umbrella. I was sitting on the tour bus like this. The back of the bus was open. There were a couple of Americans behind us and they got so excited as we were driving around because they hadn't seen things that were that old before. And that blew my mind a bit. Sometimes I forget, living in Europe, living in the UK, you get used to the heritage and how old everything is. You don't realise it's not like that all over the world. I know we stayed on the bus for an exceptionally long time. We were bombarded by typical Irish music, or music you associate with Ireland.
No, nay, never. No, nay, never, no more. Will I play the wild rover? No, never, no more.
Let's just say that before I got on that bus, I couldn't recite the whole of the Malone song. Now I can. Whilst I was on the bus, I managed to sort something out with my newfound friend to do in the evening, so we reorganised the days around. So Mum and I then went shopping and had a look around the High Street area.
Okay.
And salted caramel whipped cream.
Woo. And I found Lush. And I did buy myself a Milky Bar bubble bar, but unfortunately when I got back to the Airbnb there was no plug in the tub. And yes, I did put that on my review, that there was no plug and that I was annoyed. So that evening I abandoned my mum, went on a date of sorts to a Chinese buffet place, and then I ended up in a bar somewhere. The Wigwam pub. Then he walked me home. He actually walked me over the halfpenny bridge. That was my first time seeing the bridge, so that made me excited. Temple Bar at night is exceptionally busy. There's pubs everywhere. Living and working in central London on a Friday, Saturday night, it's very congested due to all the pubs, but I have never seen anything like Dublin before. Apparently lots of people go to Dublin for their hen nights, stag nights. And going back on myself, when I flew to Dublin, I was in the middle of a stag party. The guy behind me was the groom, and he had a veil and some fake flowers. He had a white dress over the top of his t-shirts and jeans. And I flew from Southend Airport, so they were all Essex goers, so thick Essex accents. And two of them were called Smithy and Gavin and Stacey. Anyway, going back to the walk home, he walked me home, all was fine, went to bed very late, and then we got up mega early for the next day. Mum had decided to book a day trip outside of Dublin, but unfortunately from the moment we woke up that morning to going to bed in the evening, it rained non-stop, and there were a couple of storms across the day as well. It was a bad day weather-wise. I mean, you'd think we were used to it because we're British, but no. By the way, I do apologise if I pronounce anything wrong. So we took the bus to somewhere called Glendalough, and we took a tour of the ruins there. And I learnt an awful lot. So I'm going to insert some clips here of what we saw. Sometimes you don't know quite what to say about things you go and see.
And really the monks were trying to bring in the Celtic people, were calling him to come back and to teach us about the Christian faith.
But it was definitely an education, especially about Oliver Cromwell. Then Mum and I had to abandon the tour because the rain got so heavy, and we went to the hotel and had a hot chocolate and sandwich. And that was heaven at the time because we were so wet and cold.
Bonjour!
Bonjour! Il pleut?
Il pleut?
Something like that. Hello. We all then got on the bus again and then stopped off at somewhere called the Wicklow Gap. Now this really was in the middle of nowhere. There was no protection from the elements, and they told us that when we got off the bus we had to be careful. I was not prepared. I got off the bus and was literally blown back. There's sort of like a viewpoint that looks out, and I managed to make it up there with my camera. Managed to put my camera down securely and film this. I do something where I run across the world and I film myself running from one side of the screen to the other. I just about managed to do that in that weather. I can't describe how bad the weather is. It looks okay, but it was not okay. My mum stayed on the bus. It was just me facing the elements out there with the other people from the tour bus. But despite the weather, it was a beautiful scene. I felt like I was on D&V or in the moors, Dartmoor. Loved it. That was fun.
So Hollywood in Wicklow has its own sign too.
Then the bus tour took us to somewhere called Kilkenny. As it was a Sunday, lots of the places were shut, but there was enough open that allowed us to look round. There were several vintage shops that I loved. I'm a massive fan of vintage and antique stores. I bought an Irish, or Irish designed, 50 pence. Here's just some other shots of things that I saw or I liked or wanted to document.
Curling. Curling.
We stopped off somewhere and had scones and jam, and they were perfect. They were hot, they were delicious. Then we left, got on the bus, drove home, and it was still pouring with rain. Yes, I'm talking about the weather an awful lot in this.
Very, 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 very heavy.
Oh, goodness me.
Come on, Mum.
But we didn't go back to Airbnb. We decided to continue exploring, and we found the Malone statue, which is quite famous in Dublin. So this is the statue. I was quite surprised how short her dimensions were. As a short person, that made me happy. And inside her basket were mussels and cockles. We did go into the pub that was opposite the statue, but there were so many people in there that we couldn't find somewhere to sit down. But I had never seen a pub like that before, filled to bursting with people, and so many nooks and crannies and stairwells. I didn't go into many Irish pubs, but I definitely recommend you have a look in there. Eventually we went to bed and got up for our last couple of hours before going home. On the last day we explored a couple of churches, including St. Peter's, and that was beautiful. There were things like flags that were hundreds of years old. We got on another tour bus and spent 2 hours on there, and I should say at this point we did have our suitcases with us. I'm very grateful I had a small suitcase. We did the same tour that we did 2 days before, and then got on another one that did a different tour.
Goodness.
Glassware, silver and ceramics. The museum.
So I managed to see as much as possible in Dublin. And just before we got our flight, we had fish and chips near the high street, near that big pointy thing. For me, Dublin in itself didn't feel that different to London. That's not me trying to insult Dublin, but as a Londoner, sort of, I felt like I hadn't left home. The only difference for me was around Dublin and the outer areas, all the buildings were very grey and dark. That did seem to be a very prominent colour scheme, grey mixed with the green, whites and oranges. I don't know. So for me, I didn't quite feel like I was on holiday, but I was exploring a brand new place that I'd never been before. Something that really confused me was Pennies. This is Pennies. Pennies is exactly the same as Primark, it just has a different name. Now you know. Whilst I was abroad, I had no phone and limited internet, so there were a few times we popped into Starbucks to nick the Wi-Fi. I won't deny that. But I have to say that the Starbucks was better in Ireland. There were two things I really loved on this adventure, and it was the post and phone boxes. They were green instead of red back at home. And the other thing was the Carol's tourist shops. They were everywhere. It was just so weird seeing everything green as opposed to the prominent red that we have back at home. To bring this very happy and hyper vlog to a close, I did enjoy myself, and I hope that's come across in this video. It's been a bit all over the place. So yeah, that was my video on my very brief trip to Ireland. Right, I'll see you in the next one.